It's 7 o'clock. I'll call the Savage City Council meeting to order. Roll call.
Mayor Kelly.
Here.
Council members Bergstrom.
Here.
Coughlin.
Here.
Crakes. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll move on to public comments. The mayor and the city council believe public comments are a necessary component to elected governance. With this principle in mind, we welcome individuals to come to the podium to inform us on an issue or provide feedback or concerns about matters in Savage. Please come to the podium, provide your name and address. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I don't think there's anyone here to do that. We'll move on to additions, modifications, and approval of the agenda. Any additions or modifications from council? Staff?
None from staff, Mayor.
I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Bergstrom. I was like, who said that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 4, proclamations. We have one proclamation tonight, and I will read that. I don't think is there anybody here to receive it? Thank you. The proclamation, Pride Month, June 2025. Whereas the Stonewall riots between June 28, 1969 and July 3, 1969 in New York signified the beginning of the fight for equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender LGBT around the United States. This movement for the rights of individuals has grown to include queer, intersex, asexual, pansexual, and other LGBTQIA+. And whereas in 2024, we celebrate the 55th anniversary of the Stonewall riots, when members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender communities took a stand against police harassment and violence against LGBTQIA+ people. And whereas in 1993, Minnesota became the first state in the nation to outlaw both sexual orientation and gender discrimination in the field of employment, housing, credit, education, and public accommodations with the Minnesota Human Rights Act. And whereas in 2013, the state of Minnesota legalized same-sex marriage, and whereas the LGBTQIA+ have always made and continue to make great and lasting contributions to the community and our society in every capacity, and whereas Pride Month is an opportunity to acknowledge how the LGBTQIA+ community continues to face discrimination, persecution, bullying, health disparities, and other negative stereotypes, and whereas it is important to realize that we are all part of the same community of intersecting identities, experiences, and backgrounds, and whereas we fully recognize and reaffirm our commitment that the LGBTQIA+ people deserve respect, compassion, and a place to be their authentic selves, and we continue to commit to being a city where LGBTQIA+ community members are safe and thriving. Now, therefore, I, Christine L. Kelly, Mayor of the City of Savage, hereby proclaim June 2025 as Pride Month in our community. Moving on to presentations. And I'm going to turn it over to Robbie. I'm sorry, Mr. Coons, the audience cannot hear you. I did ask for public comments, and at the time there was nobody in the audience, so we did continue to move forward with the agenda, yes.
Will they have the chance to make public comment later?
At another meeting, not anymore tonight.
All right. Thank you for not jumping between it. Thank you. Awesome. We'll continue.
Good evening, Mayor Kelly and council members. Tonight, under the consent agenda, we're asking for approval of a special event permit for the Vets for Vets car show. As noted in the packet, we are asking for approval based on modifications. These modifications include just shortening the length of the street closure so it doesn't cut off one of the driveways for our residents. We will work with engineering on a detour route and with Public Works to secure signage. Mr. Kupka met with me last December, and when he did, and he explained the event, it was very moving. So to help bring this agenda item to life, we've invited the event chairperson to share a few words. We're pleased to welcome Mr. A.J. Kupka, the chairperson for Vets for Vets. AJ has led the event since 2022 and has been an active board member of the Classic Corvettes of Minnesota since 2014, serving in several key roles over the years. His dedication has earned him multiple club awards, including Member of the Year in 2022, Board Service Recognition in 2023, and the Milestone Award in 2024. AJ holds a bachelor's degree in engineering from DeVry University in Chicago. He retired from Medtronic in 2017 after 25 years as a senior principal engineer in cardiac rhythm management, and continued his work as a consultant for Boston Scientific from 2018 to 2025, with assignments both in Brazil and Maple Grove. On the dais tonight, you will see a card. It's got a QR code on there. They have produced a short video, and the other QR code will take you to the Vets for Vets information. As for his Corvette credentials, he's owned quite a collection over the years, including a C3, 2 C5s, 2 C6s, and 2 C8s. I cannot explain what those are, but I'm sure AJ can. Please join me in welcoming AJ Kupka. Oh, yes.
Good evening.
Thank you for being here.
And how do I advance it?
You can press the down arrow or use the mouse. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is AJ Kupka. My address is 1821 Cloud Drive, Northeast. I live in Blaine, Minnesota, and I am the chairman of the Vets for Vets car show that's sponsored through the American Legion, okay, right here in Savage on 123rd in Princeton. So what I have for you this evening is just a presentation that I put together back in December just to try and get the ball rolling, okay? And by all means, if you have any questions, you can ask at the end or during. But here's what I have. Just talk a little bit about the introduction. The Classic Corvettes, we are a car club. We actually started with 5 gentlemen, 2 cases of beer, and a garage up in Mounds View. How did we come out with Classic Corvettes? That's our name. It's been that way for 45 years. And that is just kind of one of those things where, and let me start out by saying, on Corvettes, they talk about C1 through C8. That is actually chassis number. So the very first Corvette was 1953. That's a C1. There was only 300 made. They were all white with red interior. That went all the way up until 62. Then the C2 came out in 63 and ended in 67. If you own a 63 or a 67, I would like to talk to you. They are worth a lot of money. Okay? Then C3 came out. But this club was formed in 1981. And the reason and the purpose they came out with Classic Corvettes of Minnesota is because they only wanted to deal with C1 and C2. The C3 cars had all the new functionality features like power windows, many different options that the club really didn't want to do at the time. It was very small. Okay? I'm going to talk a little bit about past performance and what our projections are, and that's why I'm here to talk this evening. And in our request, okay, and in our intended results, and most importantly, to thank you for the consideration. So I kind of already mentioned that we started in 1981. We do cruises, we have social activities. Our size of our club is about 310 members. That varies from year to year. We have over 220 cars, okay? We do have a few members that have more than one car. I happen to be kind of in that grouping because I love them, okay? I sat in my first Corvette when I was 14 years old. It was green with a tan interior. It was $3,700. I figured at $1.25 per hour, if I worked both my junior and senior year, I'd have one at graduation. Okay? I also, if you remember the movies, back in 1969-70, there was a movie called Billy Jack. They drove a gold 427 into the river. Okay? So my thought was I'd buy a car and take much better care of that. Okay? But I do want to mention that what is our purpose and why am I here? Well, we actually host 3 significant car shows each year. We do the Lakeville Pan of Prague. That has roughly 200 to 400 cars. Down in Red Wing, we have the River City Days and then the Vets for Vets. This is the 18th year that we've had it. We've been associated with the American Legion down here for about 20 years. It all started when we actually did our first car show actually at the Minneapolis Veterans Home. Going on, as kind of mentioned, 18th year. The club serves the veterans, the families. It even serves root beer floats. So let me kind of give you an idea. We start at 6:37 in the morning to do the setup. At 8:30 is when cars start showing up. And this is an open car show. That means all cars, all Corvettes, all trucks, whatever you've got, something that is really pleasing. They start loading in. At 10 o'clock, we actually do a color guard presentation. We do have a lot of veterans in our group. And then at 1 o'clock, we actually do voting. So we have 7 different categories, and we actually give out trophies for multiple different cars, whether it's Corvette, trucks, cars, metal, non-metal, and so forth. As far as other things, one of the purposes that we do too is, if you are aware of it, there is also the farmers market that runs right there on 123rd. So our members, and they kind of cross-pollinate, and that's one of the big benefits of our car show running on Sunday. So just moving on, here's kind of what it looks like. I mentioned in the upper left-hand corner, this is our flag ceremony that runs. We actually have the junior ROTC from Cream-Durham Hall actually presents that, does that for us. And then here in the middle, that's actually the flyer from the Minneapolis Veterans Home, where they actually, during the day, when we go over there at 1:30, we actually cruise there, and whoever wants to go over there can. We actually drive around the Minneapolis Veterans Home. So for those that are unable, I mean, it really is touching to see them in their windows, and they see the cars, and they just go, it brings them back to a happy time. And for those that are able to walk or in wheelchairs, they come on out, because we park the cars. You can talk with the drivers, even some can sit in the cars and so forth. And then we also encourage new members to join us, okay? So you can see in the upper right, this family just happened to join us, so that is a C5 car. So I can tell you every car, what year was born, how many, and all that. Okay, I can tell you my current car was born on April 4th, 2 years ago. I know exactly its model number, the serial number, and I actually did what they call a museum delivery. So down in Bowling Green, Kentucky, they actually manufacture, within 2-3 miles is the National Corvette Museum. If you are ever in Bowling Green, you want to go there. But my wife and I picked up the car. It happened to be the tire company, Michelin. It was the Bash. There had to be 10 to 20,000 people when we picked up our car. So when we brought our car out of the National Corvette Museum, there had to be 10,000 cars around. Quite an incredible day. It's a different kind of family. So past performance, and here's our 2025 projections. I have been doing this now. This is my 4th year. I have been doing a lot of Boy Scout stuff, organizing, all this type of stuff. So this is nothing really new to me as far as doing, but you can kind of see our numbers. In 2020, we started with 135 vehicles. We actually had a donation amount just short of 2,000, and you can kind of see that we're growing. And what's happening is social media, and certainly by word of mouth and by our trophies, okay? Meaning that guys, some gals come on by, and they really want to get what's called Top Gun trophy. That is like you are top dog of 200 or 300 cars. Last year, we had 209 cars. The most we've ever had is 226, and I'll show you one of the little maps before, and we raised $5,600. So the way that I explain this to our volunteers is this. It does take just over 200 hours, volunteer hours, to put this together. If you relate 5,600 into 200, it's roughly $30 an hour. So that's how I encourage people to volunteer. That's kind of what your time is worth to give to the veterans. We use our gate fee. So basically, our raffles, silent auctions, and so forth, and donations, cash donations, goes to the Veterans Home. But any of the gate money, meaning that when cars come in, they can do a pre-order at $15 or $20 at the gate. That's what we use to pay for our expenses. Okay? Here's our request. So what I've got here is a little picture of the overview. I know that Robbie mentioned earlier that we're going to shorten up the actual road of Princeton there, so it doesn't block the housing that's here. But you can see, and this is an overview from last year, yeah, we've got drones in the group, but you can see those are all Corvettes lined up there. So I'll just tell you, that's probably about $15 million worth of cars. Okay? Anyway, moving on, you can see kind of in the upper right-hand corner, we've got a little red box there. 2-3 years ago, that used to be an open area where we could park extra cars. And that's the dilemma that we have, is we now have the surface space, the parking lots of the American Legion, the street. And then also now I have encouraged and received the go-ahead from the two businesses across the street that we can use their parking lots in the back, okay? Because I seriously have no idea how many cars are going to show up, and it's all weather dependent. I do know last year we had 209, so I'm trying to make sure that we're out ahead of it, and I have place. And the purpose and the reason of that is I want to stay with our sponsor as long as we possibly can. I know someday we're going to grow out of this space, but I want to be here as long as possible. Because for the American Legion, they actually sell 300 to 600 meals in that day. Okay, so it's a great revenue benefit for them. We also do our raffle and our silent auction in their community area. Okay. Here's the reason for our request. Okay, so now that we've got parking cars in between a couple lots, we have Princeton Avenue between us, okay? I'd like to say that this is a safety issue in which I'd like to have some barriers up so that people can walk, because I'm sorry, they could be on their phone, they could be doing anything, they could be talking about a car, just talking in general. I'd like to make sure that the road is secure, but most importantly, if we can get a few extra car spots in case we need. So that's what I'm asking for, in addition to our standard certificates that we've had in the past. So here's our contact information. I am A.J. Kupka. I worked with John Wessel, who is a past president, to actually develop this back in December, and we talked with Robbie. But we also have a website and Facebook, and then also there's a little card, and on that there's a couple QR codes. There's a 4-minute video that we put together that talks about this car show and what it is and what it can do. And of the 15 car shows that happen on every day, why is this one important, okay? For me, my dad was Navy, my daughter was Air Force, my fantastic uncle, he was in Army, so I kind of had to go all over the place. But it's just really rewarding in the fact that when you go to the Minneapolis Veterans Home and you show up and you actually work, with them and serve them root beer floats, it's so humbling. Anyway, any questions? That's all I have. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I did have some questions about the expanded reach of the permit and the closing of some of the streets.
Can we go back to the...
Even if we can go back to that overhead aerial.
Absolutely.
I know you're using the public parking lot where all the cars are lined up. Dude, are you actually parking in the lot of the Legion also?
Yes.
Have they given you permission to take over that full lot?
Yes.
Okay.
And the Legion, we also have a notification letter that goes out a few months. It should be going out like right now to the businesses that are all closed on Sunday that share that same parking lot. And we also talked with, so I physically have walked, to talk the street. There's 5 houses and 2 businesses. The businesses are closed, and the people, they're like, come. I do not have any written, authorization or evidence, but conversation.
Okay. Because, so part of the reason I'm asking is I did have a call from the commander at the Legion, and I know you're coordinating and working with them.
Yes.
But they were a little concerned about access to their facility with the additional street closed, and I wanted to make sure that those accessible parking stalls for the Legion weren't blocked. Mm-hmm. Could somebody still, a patron still come into the Legion and use those stalls for the use of the lot? And so how would they get in, and how would they still have access? And
Like in several years in the past, it's by foot traffic, but as far as parking in the lot, there is available space there. The handicap spots are still there, but majority of it is used for the car show.
Okay, but they would still be able to get past the barricade?
We
get
could
to that
allow
lot?
them to come past the barricade. If they're saying, if the statement is, we'd like to park here for the American Legion, absolutely.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was,
Right.
he wasn't quite fully sure of maybe he didn't see this plan, he just knew the street was going to be blocked and was concerned about patrons there.
That is a possibility that Jim did not see the plan. I shared it with Sue, who's the general manager.
Right.
Okay, and then, I helped document or fill out the application to make sure that it's updated with the request to do the street. And that's why the barricades, from a traffic perspective, the barricades are after the actual alleyway. So in case there is a vehicle that's not a Corvette, not part of the car show, they have a place to go.
Very good. I wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Stacy?
Maybe I'll just ask. I'm assuming Sang and his team has looked at this, or do they need to look at this as well?
I can answer that. Yes, Singh has seen it, and he is going to be working on the detour map with me.
Okay.
So he's on board.
Okay.
And I just saw a thumbs up from Greg Boatman and so I believe our Public Works Department and our Fire Department have also seen this. They're both nodding to me, so we'll just, I won't make them get up. Any other questions, concerns?
Maybe one more question. Is the parking lot like over by Buffalo Tap open? Because now we've restricted a lot of parking during the farmer's market.
Farmer's market.
And so it's a very busy day. And that lot is normally full anyway, and I just didn't know how over time when we redirect parking for everything that's going on.
Those parking lots will be open.
Okay.
So the city owns, the back part of that.
All right.
That-
But
that's-
I wanted to make sure
I
we
hate
had
to call
like,
it a lot, but
The
that
gra-
open
yeah.
gravel,
like signage or something, make sure people know where to park when it's so busy.
Gravel, and then there was a former, I don't know if you call it a warehouse, we called it the Hanson Building that we took down. That's also open for parking during the farmers markets. Yep.
Thank you.
any other questions? Well, I just wanted to thank you for coming to our meeting. I just think it's really great, and I'm excited for the event, and I'm really excited to make sure our residents and other folks know that this is happening in town. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. The event is in 69 days. Thank you.
69 days and counting, right? We'll keep moving on to the minutes. So approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting from May 19th, 2025. Any additions or corrections? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, seconded by Coughlin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearings, we have none this evening. The consent agenda, routine items of business that are collectively presented for approval through a single motion. A council member may request that an item be pulled from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. Under Finance, adopt a resolution to approve claims listing, and under the General, adopt a resolution approving a special event permit for American Legion Dan Patch Post number 643 for a Vets for Vets car show to be held on August 10th, 2025 at 12375 Princeton Avenue. Anybody want to pull something or talk about anything? All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Bergstrom. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to general business. Receive an update on surveillance equipment at Riverbend Park.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'm going to ask Chad Palm, our IT director, to come up. He has been working on getting quotes for surveillance at several parks here in our park system. So if you recall, in 2023, we went through a public engagement process where we engaged the residents and the users of the park about what we can do to make the park more safe. And we implemented a lot of recommendations or suggestions from that process. Also, one of the themes was putting up additional surveillance equipment. And so with some of the concerns that we heard from residents this year, we did go ahead and solicited quotes for equipment that we could put up there. Chad's going to talk about what would look like, what we could do, and then I'll talk about some financing options for that.
Thank you, Brad. I've just got a short little deck I'll pull up here. Okay, so as Brad mentioned, we worked with our existing security camera vendor, Legacy Security, to take a look at what expansion of cameras into Riverbend Park would look like. One of the big cost savings opportunities in working with that vendor is our existing back-end camera storage system called Milestone. There's a picture of it that's up there on the screen. It is fully supported by our current vendor, and it is also scalable. We currently use that back-end system in utilities for monitoring our water infrastructure, such as our lift stations and our water towers, as you can see pictured there on the slide. The proposal that Legacy Security gave us included 2 cameras for the park location, one dome camera that would be situated inside of the park shelter itself, and then a camera to be affixed to a pole that would be outside of the shelter, outside and above it. It would be a 4K or high definition camera with pan, tilt, zoom capabilities and an optional AI for license plate recognition. It would leverage existing 5G LTE cellular internet routers that we actually presently own, so that would be a cost savings. And I've had experience with deploying infrastructure, IT infrastructure in the field in my time with the City of Chaska and its Chaska.net initiative. We made sure to scale this out using ruggedized lockable enclosures that had the necessary heating equipment, air circulation, battery backup power, and conditioning. So that is included within the quote. The idea being that we would be able to run the solution 24/7, 365. Okay. Costs that we considered with the proposal were the cameras themselves with the included options I mentioned, the cradle point routers and the external antenna that goes along with that, the cellular data, which if we use a 5G capable router, which we have, it actually is half of the cost of our data plan, so approximately $20 a month versus $40. The cost of the enclosure and the hardware, and then electrical high voltage and low voltage wiring for the project. And so with those things in mind, we came up with a proposal that would be between $20,000 and $25,000 for implementation in Riverbend Park.
For just Riverbend Park? I should talk into my mic like I tell everybody else too. For just Riverbend Park?
We would take a look at piloting this for Riverbend Park.
Okay.
So when staff looked at this, we were considering Riverbend as the priority. We also looked at Loftus, and we also looked at Community Park. Luckily, we have not gone out for our bonds yet for equipment certificates, so we don't have this budgeted, but 25,000, we could include that in our equipment certificates that we're going to go out for bond here later in this year, so we can include it with that. At this point, staff is going to recommend just doing this for Riverbend at this point, not doing Loftus, not doing Community Park. As far as staff is concerned, if we were to do another park, I think we would do Community Park first because there's just a lot more users there. There's a lot more assets there. And if we did that, we would go through the typical budgeting process to include that at a future park. So right now, what we're suggesting is putting this with our equipment certificates, just moving ahead with Riverbend, and then that's it for this year. And we'll see how this works out, and if we feel like there's a need to do this at Community Park or potentially other parks, then we kind of have a base or a foundation of what the project may look like. We don't need council approval for this. This is more of an update, but we'd like to get your input on that.
Question, and I'm not sure if it's going to be more directed at our finance director. Talking about doing bonding for it, if we're talking about doing bonding, is this something that it makes sense to do with the equipment bonding, or is this stuff that's going to have a quicker turnover and it makes more sense to use cash on hand?
Matt, I'll let you handle.
Good question, Mayor. So this is equipment that's going to last longer than the 5 years that we take equipment certificates out for. Honestly, Chad, what would be your estimation on these? About 10 years?
I'd say 10 to 15.
10, 15 years on this. So I don't really have any concern with it. This is by far our fastest way to get this done without dipping into fund balance.
We also heard, there's one other item I forgot to mention. There are COPS grants that help pay for surveillance equipment, and our chief, Brady Jewell, looked into this. You can actually apply for these retroactively, so we could move forward with the project, pay for it, get it set up, and then apply for one of the grants. So hopefully we'll get some of the costs reimbursed. So we will try to do that as well.
Any other questions? Stacy?
How soon might that all happen and have it be installed?
Matt, can you speak to the financing part? I assume that we could move forward with it.
Yeah, we can move forward with it. We're going to be, I believe it's the next meeting, actually, I'm bringing forward to you the set sale resolution for our bonds. So we'll sell our debt in July and get the money in August. So we can move forward with this, and we are covered by a reimbursement resolution and a 60-day look back to be able to reimburse these costs. So we can expend it before the bonds come in.
Chad, can you speak to the vendors and how quick they could get out there?
Indicated lead time on the equipment was 4 to 6 weeks. So we would be tied in with that timeline.
So not too quick, but about as quick as we can get out there.
And I'm sorry, I'll let you ask your question in a minute. We currently have the borrowed camera that we're using from Scott County. Can we continue to use that? Do we know through when we'll be able to have the cameras installed?
Chris, I know you just got back, but do you have any idea of how long we can continue to use the county's camera system? I remember when Chief Jewell told us that we were getting that from the county, he said several weeks, so I don't know what that means. Chris?
I think several weeks would be a good estimate. I know that there's events coming up later in the county, as well as Dan Patch Days, other things that they kind of move that camera around, so I can't speak to how long. I don't think we could have it for the 6 weeks that would be needed.
We will try to have it there as long as possible. It might go down before we get the new surveillance equipment up.
Matt, you had a question.
Well, it's along those lines, I think we still need a strategy of how do we span those timeframes of surveillance. I don't think it's acceptable to just wait. So we need some sort of strategy to police and patrol. And honestly, if we need to go rent a camera privately somewhere, we probably should think about doing that.
Okay.
I
then-
might know a guy.
Okay.
I'm not going to make any promises, but I might know a guy.
And then the coverage you said, we're adding a new pole.
That's correct. So
Pole will cover the court and the parking lot, the type of camera.
great question. So up on screen right now, this is just a Google image, which includes a 360-degree of Riverbend. So the idea would be that we would set a pole along one of the existing legs of the structure and be above the roof line. And then that is a 360-degree camera, 4K camera, that has the pan tilt zoom capabilities to be able to reach out to the basketball court, to the parking lot, to adjacent street parking, and back to the playground structure.
Good idea. I think just to confirm that Pine Tree, just make sure whoever is doing the analysis for the camera coverage analysis, that pine tree isn't blocking that end of that court, and we're getting what we want out of it.
Understood.
Yeah.
And does it move on its own, or we have somebody directing it?
It does. It has capability of both. So it can have a manual override to be driven from a city facility, aka City Hall or the police department. Plus AI can actually drive the pan tilt zoom and follow motion within the park.
Good.
Any other questions?
We'll get out there as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I know a lot of people were putting in some extra work to try and make this happen as fast as possible. All right, we'll move on to city council reports. Does anybody have any reports? I know Bob does. We'll start with you, Bob.
169 Coalition had their annual membership meeting at Mr. Pig. After we took a tour of the new amphitheater in Shakopee, which was quite an impressive facility. Madam Mayor, you were there, as well as our chief engineer, Singh, and so a lot of people showed up to that. I got to see ahead of time. It's, I would say, close to 75% completion, but they're still not going to be ready till next year for their first show. But it's a very impressive facility. The 169 Coalition talked about just updating what our priorities are for the past year, and 169 Coalition's done a pretty good job about taking care of items within Scott County, and we have some actually new things going on. There was just a groundbreaking for the Jordan interchange to eliminate the stoplight on 169 in Jordan, and now we're running out of things to do in Scott County for as far as 169 goes, but they also support collateral programs such as Highway 13, which is an integral connector with 169. And so that's why it's still good that we're part of the commission. But we're trying to expand our look farther south down to Le Sueur and Mankato area and some of the projects that are happening farther south, and also expand our reach a little bit farther north with changes that may go on 494 or 394 interchange areas. So that's the 169 Coalition.
That coalition, when you think about everything that they've worked on over the years that we've been involved, is really impressive. And you talk about doing some things farther south. Well, anything that helps 169, that's helping all of the traffic come to the ports of Savage, is a benefit for our businesses and who's here. So I think it's a really good thing that we're a part of that group. So, all right. Anybody else have any meetings?
Maybe I'll just comment, the May MVTA meeting was actually canceled, so I did not miss it, but it did not happen.
All right, well, I did get to tour the Shakopee Amphitheater. That thing is going to be impressive. I think they said 19,000 people. Mm-hmm. And the whole drive is focused on being one of the best venues ever for the artists. They've really designed the backstage to be a place where artists want to come. So I thought it was fascinating. I also was invited to judge engineering projects over at Shakopee High School. So a little part of us, not everybody knows, a little bit of us is also in the Shakopee Public School District. And I was invited to judge engineering projects. And I'm just going to say this intro to engineering class, the students, they have clients. The clients are special needs students in the Shakopee School District. The students interview the clients. They find out what kind of things they can use or want, or something that they need to help them with a problem or challenge that they have. They talk to them. They talk sometimes to their parents, sometimes to the para, and then they design a project for this client. And then what we judged was a presentation on what the project was, what kind of iterations they went through, their designs, and I am not the engineer, so I didn't do that piece, but just getting to see the students interact with each other, both the engineering students and the special needs students, and how they did that. It was just, I've now done this twice, and brings tears to my eyes every time I go, because I just think it's a really beautiful way for the engineering students to see how they can make a difference in somebody's life. And if you caught the story on CCO, you might have seen the one student who they designed something for, and just his overall enthusiasm for his tool was really, really cool. So I commend those students for the work that they did. Let's see, written communication, general information, and follow-up. We did the follow-up for the Riverbend Park, so we're working on the cameras, we're working on other things. I know the police department is still using that, or considering that to be a spot that they're continuing to monitor. Any other follow-ups that you have for that?
Not for Riverbend, Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yeah,
if I may.
sorry.
And I'd like to follow up on some communication that we all received, I received from Mr. Coons. And I think just to provide some context around that I can't get a lot of details, but fundamentally, I apologize for comments that I made privately to the former mayor, between she and myself. Nobody else is a part of those comments. And the comments were about the election that we had and the chaos that created at that election poll. I know it's being discussed and resolved, but again, I want to apologize for making those comments. My comment generally was that we need to calm down. As a society, we're getting too spun up on things that really aren't that critical, and creating a lot of tension and chaos that's creating disrespect. and it's unfortunate. And I reacted to a point where I don't understand where people are coming from at times. I like to know where they come from, and a lot of that comes from how they live, how they were raised, their family, their neighborhood, their community, and all those have big impact on how we all react to issues. And so part of my comment was around that in terms of what is happening to somebody where they get this concern that their rights are being taken away. That's not how we operate as a city or as a community. It's not how I want to personally operate ever. I want to treat everybody with utmost respect, but it's also understanding where people come from to understand how to understand them. And so that was the premise around those comments. There was no other communication around that, no other communication within the council or me even with anybody else. It's more just talking to the mayor in terms of trying to understand life. So again, my apologies. I'm sorry. So that's it.
Thank you. Moving on,
Stacy had something.
sorry.
I was just going to ask, because I can't recall if we all received the email about the retaining wall, or if just some of us received the email about the retaining wall, but can we just address kind of what's going on with the retaining wall as part of this meeting? Because I don't know that we've responded or followed up via email as of yet.
Yeah, so the city council received an email about a retaining wall that goes across several properties. It sits right behind a sidewalk. The property owner that sent that email has talked to staff. Staff has gone out there and they have looked at this retaining wall. It is I want to say it's several decades old, so it is showing its wear and tear. Staff did go out there. It's leaning, but we do not think it's a safety concern at this point. It does need to be replaced sometime here in the near future, and so I've asked staff to put this into the CIP. It's not something that we feel like we need to do this year or maybe even the next year, but here soon we do need to replace that because it is on city property, it is a city retaining wall. So we are looking at where it's most appropriate to put that in the CIP.
Thank you.
Do we need to replace it as a retaining wall, or do we have right away we can create a bank instead so it's no longer an issue long term, like forever?
That one I am not sure about. We can ask Sang and I can send an update to city council. I'm not sure if he's looked into it in that much detail, but something needs to happen here in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
All right, then I just have two announcements. I think we have two and then a couple other follow-up things. June 17th, we are having our peace polls put in at Riverbend Park. That starts at 6:30. 6:30, June 17th, that's a Tuesday, I believe. All are invited to come. I think it's going to be a really great night. So the peace poll presentation is at 6:30, and then if I'm not mistaken, Treats and Tunes follows at 7 p.m. So everybody come to Riverbend Park on Tuesday, June 17th for the peace poll at 6:30 and Treats and Tunes, which is always great, at 7 o'clock. And then 2 days later, on June 19th, we have a very important celebration. We are doing a Juneteenth celebration at McCall Pond Environmental Learning Center. That starts at 6 p.m., I believe 6 to 8. And excited to announce that we have a keynote speaker, Ed Jenkins, who is known for Keyshawn Solves It podcast. And so, again, inviting everybody in the community to come out on June 19th to really celebrate Juneteenth with everybody. So 6 to 8 p.m. on June 19th. And then I just had two other things. I did receive a phone call from a resident tonight about a food truck issue down at BP downtown. I'm going to talk to Brad about it tomorrow, and then we'll fill everybody else in on what's going on and where issues are at. We'll take care of that. I did let the resident know that I would be mentioning it tonight, though, at the meeting. So we will be following up with that. And then Brad wanted to mention Dan Patch Days.
Yeah, so what we've talked about in the past, but we haven't been able to do it because Dan Patch Days has been canceled, or at least the portion where we have booths out there has been canceled the last 2 years. But what we have discussed in the past is that the city will have a couple booths out there, one for police, one for fire, and what council has wanted to do in the past is just come to those booths and stand at those booths and hand out information. My question for the group is, do you want to do the same thing? This was in lieu of having city council's own booth. We just need to make sure that we don't have 3 of you there at the same time. Do you want to do that, or do you want to do something different?
I will be in Lake Superior that weekend for soccer, so I will not be here to attend.
All right.
I'll be here either. We at LMC.
Oh,
Yes.
it's on Saturday. Saturday is when they typically do the booth.
Maybe?
I see tepid head nodding, so we'll get the booth schedule out as soon as we get it, and then we can coordinate more.
Okay. And parade? Do we have any information on the parade?
I do not have information on the parade yet. I can reach out to them and see if anything's changed.
Mayor better find something out. Tell you. All right, with that, if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Bergstrom, seconded by Johnson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.